Okay, so for this week's weekly diary, I'm going to be talking about kind of like the ambiguity that I felt when we talked about two different things. One being the term othering, and one being kind of Walter Benjamin's arguments based on like mechanical reproduction of a moment and whether or not it takes away from its authenticity or something like that. So first is the othering concept. I was kind of confused when we were going over this because it seemed like it's supposed to be taken in a negative connotation, and it makes sense. Like you don't necessarily want to classify different groups. I understand the whole negative stigma around that, but I feel like when you apply it to humanitarianism and human rights advocacy, you kind of have to do it. It's just the reality of the situation, especially if you have one group of people helping and one group of people being recipients of that help. It's just the reality. That's why I just was kind of confused because I don't know if we're necessarily talking about it in a negative way. That's kind of the message that I took away from it. But I guess I just believe that it's just the reality of situation because when you have something as distinct as that, just different distinct classes or not classes, but roles of people providing and those receiving the help, you kind of have to make that distinction, and you can't work around that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that you have those distinctions because, again, it's just the reality of the situation. Secondly, was the Walter Benjamin article we read and discussed in class. I know we really didn't discuss a whole lot about it when it applies to human rights advocacy, but I guess my takeaway from it is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, not because of the ways we were talking about it, how like it can prepare you for, if you saw the Eiffel Tower, I think we were talking about in class, if you saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time and never saw a picture of it, it wouldn't be as powerful. But I guess when you apply it to, what the topic of the course is, and that being human rights, I think that it's a good thing because it spreads awareness, and I most people wouldn't understand what was going on in Africa or South America or wherever it be if it wasn't for people actually publishing these pictures and documents and so on and so forth. And I do agree though, because it could also apply to when you actually go and experience it. Like when I was in Guatemala this summer with the army doing a bunch of stuff, we were working with the local population. It definitely does hit home a lot more, and you realize how fortunate you are when you actually go and see it for yourself. But again, kind of going back, kind of relating it with othering, it's kind of like a reality of the situation because it has to be done. You have to replicate it in some way because the reality of the situation is that not everyone's going to be able to see it with their own eyes. So I guess those are my two big comments that I have for this week.